Hello everybody, Shalom Aleichem, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever this is that you're watching. So we've just entered in, we're entering in right now, it's Rosh Chodesh Adar Aleph. This is a Shana Ma'uberes, this is a leap year, we're going to have Adar Aleph, we're going to have Adar Beis. I want to spend a moment or two to talk about the whole concept of Adar 1, Adar 2, what's the extra month all about, and how could that be a lesson for us every day of the year, even when it's not a Rosh Chodesh Ma'uberes, a leap year. So there's a pasuk in the Torah that says Shamaris Chodesh Ha'aviv Asisa Pesach, which means that you have to make sure that when Pesach comes out, the spring, at the time of the year when the crops are ripe. We know on the second day of Pesach they would bring the Karban Omer. The Karban Omer has to be ripe, and therefore Pesach has to come out at a season that allows for that. What's the issue? The issue is like this: as Jewish people, we follow a calendar that's based on the moon, the lunar calendar. The world, not the Torah world, follows the sun, which is the solar year. The solar year has 365 days in it. The lunar year has 354 days. So we're 11 days following the moon behind the sun. What's the issue with that? The issue is that the seasons don't listen to us. The seasons listen to the sun. Hashem, in control of the seasons, He runs that with the sun. So that means that when the crops will ripen is dependent on when the sun allows for that to happen. Obviously being orchestrated by Hashem. So every year we fall 11 days behind the sun. 2 years, 22 days. 3 years, 33 days. So that being said, eventually you're going to have that Pesach comes out at a very different time than the spring ripening season. We're not going to be able to bring the Karban Omer. So therefore the Torah says, Shamaris Chodesh Ha'av. Make sure that it comes out, that when Pesach comes, it is the ripening season. How do you make sure that? We're behind. So what you do is, add a leap year. Make a leap month, add an extra month. That extra 29, 30 days that you're going to add will fill in that gap of time that we fell behind. The way it works is every 19 years, there's going to be 5 leap years that come out every 3 years, 2 leap years that come out every 2 years, 15 plus 4 is 19, and that's the cycle, and that's how it all works out. So we have this idea of the solar, it's the sun, the shemesh, and we have the lunar, we have the levana, the moon. Let's speak about those two. The shemesh, the sun, is something which is constant. It's always coming down, heating the world. The moon, on the other hand, the moon waxes, the moon wanes, it gets smaller, it gets bigger. The moon's reflecting the light of the sun. We don't always have that same view of the moon. Big, small, full, very few days. The sun represents the idea of what's constant in our life, what's important that can't change, what we always have to do, what's important and what's not bendable. There's no leeway with it. It's a must, constant. The levana, the moon, is what represents the idea of renewal, of falling, getting back up, bigger, smaller, sometimes needing that his oris, that inspiration, that idea of, I have to become bigger. I've fallen, and now I'm going to get up, and I'm going to do more. That's the levana. That's the moon. Sounds like they're kind of opposites. If you have something which always has to be done, it can't change. And if you have something which allows for change, it can't always be done. Sounds like a contradiction. However, as Jewish people, we know that we have the 613 mitzvahs which are constant. The derech of Hashem, the Torah, is not something which is bendable. It's something which is a must. Just as we have physical needs to stay physically alive, we have spiritual needs to stay spiritually alive, to actually accomplish and to live in a way that's with meaning, why we came to the world. Yet at the same point, Hashem knows us, that we're not malachim. Hashem made us as imperfect individuals who may fall, but have the ability to get back up. And we can get back up and even be stronger than we were beforehand. And that's the moon. The moon is Chodesh. Chodesh month. Rosh Chodesh is all the levana. Is his chadshus, is becoming new again. Is that ability. There's no greater simcha than when the two opposites, or seemingly opposites, are shown to be non-contradictory, that they don't contradict each other. They can actually enhance each other to the point that even his chadshus of falling and getting back up can even make the constant greater. As we know that Tshuva Me'ahava becomes a mitzvah. There's no greater simcha, there's no greater joy than when we remove doubt, we remove suffix, we remove contradiction. Ein simcha kehataras hasfekos. There's no greater joy, the Gemara says, in removing doubt. When you take two contradictory, opposing forces and you fuse them together, When you bring together the Shemesh and the Levana, that's Simcha, that's Adar, that's why we have it now in Adar. It's also Zohar and Nekeva, two opposites come together. The Gemara says, Shari below Isha, one who's without a wife is below Simcha, is without joy, because when you can't fuse the two opposites, it seems like this contradiction. There's no joy, there's no Simcha, there's no greater Simcha than showing how it's not a contradiction. A young man once came to the Beisar from Karlin, a big tzaddik. He was so down on himself. He was so full of yish because he had done such bad. He was feeling as though he's useless, and he poured out his heart to the Rebbe. The Rebbe listened to him. Then he said to them, he says, you know that we just learned, when Klal Yisrael came to Har Sinai, it says, B'yom hazeh bo midbar Sinai. Today they came to Har Sinai. B'yom hazeh, today, we're reading the Chumash in 2022. It happened many years ago. What does it mean, B'yom hazeh? Chazal, the Gemara points out, says it means, B'chol yom yuhu alecha kechadash, that every day of Torah should be like today you received it on Har Sinai. Now, if you only received, it should be new. It should be something fresh. If you only received the Torah today, it means what you did last night was before the Torah was given. So he said to move on. What you did yesterday, okay, you'll do tshuva, but remember, Kabbalas Torah is today. So when it was Kodem on Torah, that was before the Torah was given. Rabosai, boys and girls, there's no one that knows this better than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He created the concept of tshuva, he created the concept of his chadrus of renewal, and it gives God the greatest joy when we get back up. The definition of a tzaddik is not perfection. The definition of a tzaddik is somebody who comes back. Sheva yipol tzaddik v'kam. Tzaddik gets back up. That's one of the lessons of the Levana, one of the lessons of the moon. As it waxes and wanes, keep in mind, the moon is not changing size. It's our perception. The greatness of every Jew is always so great. When we see how great we are, then it'll be a constant reminder for us to be constant and to always serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. 60 days of Simcha now with two others. We know that when milk falls into meat, if it's 60 times the amount, it becomes Balta B'Shisha. It says the Lubavitch Rebbe, any little bed that we find in Chodesh Adar, it becomes Bata. We're able to see the good in it. There's no contradiction. There's no greater joy than the fusion of seemingly opposite phenomena that come together all as one. That's Simcha. That's Chodesh Adar. I wish you all the best. You should have a wonderful morning, night, or afternoon. Have a beautiful Shabbos. Kol tov. Okay.